My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I almost lost everything that truly mattered in my life. 5 years ago, I was a newlywed married to Michael, a brilliant and charismatic lawyer who had won my heart from our very first date. Our life seemed perfect in everyone's eyes. We had a beautiful house, promising careers, and a love that seemed unshakable. But the truth is, beneath this facade of happiness, I felt restless, as if something was missing. I can't explain exactly when this feeling began to consume me. Perhaps it was gradual, like a slowly rising tide until you realize you're surrounded by water. The fact is, at some point, I realized that my life had become a monotonous and predictable routine. Wake up, go to work, come home, have dinner with Michael, sleep, and repeat it all the next day. Don't get me wrong, I loved my husband deeply, but I missed that excitement, that spark that makes your heart race. It was in this state of mind that I decided to sign up for yoga classes. I thought it would be a good way to take care of myself, to find some inner peace, and maybe add a little novelty to my routine. Little did I know that this seemingly innocent decision would be the catalyst for a series of events that would shake the foundations of my marriage and force me to question everything I thought I knew about love and fidelity. In the first class, I met Jason, the instructor. Tall, with piercing green eyes and a smile that lit up the whole room, he immediately caught my attention. His voice was soft and comforting as he guided us through the movements, and I found myself eager to return to the next class, more for the instructor than for the practice itself. Weeks passed, and I became a dedicated student, never missing a class. Michael even joked about my new yoga addiction, having no idea of the true reason behind my sudden enthusiasm. With each class, I felt a growing connection with Jason. Our gazes met more frequently, our conversations after classes became longer and more personal. One day, after a particularly intense class, Jason offered me a private session to perfect some poses. I knew I should refuse, that I was treading on dangerous ground, but the temptation was too strong. I accepted, lying to Michael about having to stay late at work. The private session was the turning point. We were alone in the studio, the setting sun filtered through the curtains creating an almost magical atmosphere. Jason was helping me adjust a posture, his strong and gentle hands guiding my body. Our eyes met and, before I could think, our lips touched in a passionate kiss. It was as if a fireworks explosion had happened inside me. All the emotion and passion I had been missing exploded in that moment. But as soon as we separated, reality hit me like a bucket of cold water. What had I done? How could I betray Michael, the man I had sworn to love and respect? I left the studio in a whirlwind of emotions, guilt, shame, excitement, confusion. My head was spinning with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, the kiss with Jason had made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. On the other, the idea of hurting Michael made me physically sick. I spent the following days in a state of constant agitation. I couldn't look Michael in the eyes without feeling like the worst person in the world. Each gesture of affection from him was like a stab in my heart. I knew I needed to make a decision, but I was paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. It was during this period of internal torment that I received a message from Jason. He wanted to see me, to talk about what had happened. Part of me wanted to run to him, to dive headfirst into this new passion and forget all the complications. But another part, the part that still loved Michael, knew that I couldn't continue living in this lie. One night, as Michael and I were having dinner in silence, the words simply escaped my mouth: I kissed someone else. Michael's fork fell onto his plate with a clatter that seemed to echo throughout the house. His eyes, always so warm, now looked at me with a mixture of shock and pain that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. What followed was the most difficult and painful conversation of my life. Through tears, I confessed everything to Michael, my feelings of restlessness, meeting Jason, the kiss. I expected shouting, accusations, maybe even for him to throw me out of the house. But what I received was something that completely surprised me: understanding. Michael, with a maturity I didn't know he possessed, listened to me in silence. When I finished speaking, he took a deep breath and said, "Sarah, I love you. What you did hurts me deeply, but I know our marriage hasn't been perfect. Maybe we need some time to think about what we really want." His words caught me off guard. I expected anger, not this reflective calm. We agreed to take some time, not a definitive break, but a period to reconnect with ourselves and reflect on what we wanted for the future. During this period of separation, I dove into deep introspection. I spent hours talking with friends, family, and even a therapist, trying to understand what led me to betray the man I loved. It was a painful process, but a necessary one. I realized that what I felt for Jason wasn't true love. It was a projection of my own insecurities and emotional needs. He represented the excitement and novelty I felt was missing in my life, but he wasn't the solid foundation on which I wanted to build my future. True love, I realized, was in my relationship with Michael. It was a love that had grown and matured over the years, a love based on trust, mutual respect, and a shared history. I had neglected this love, taking it for granted and forgetting to nurture it. As the days turned into weeks, the pain of separation became increasingly acute. I missed Michael, not just his physical presence, but our conversations, our silent moments together, the way he could make me laugh even on the toughest days. I realized I was risking losing something precious because of a moment of weakness. Finally, after a month of separation, Michael invited me to talk. We met at a neutral cafe, away from our home and the memories it held. When I saw him enter, my heart raced. He looked tired, but his eyes still had that sparkle I loved so much. "Sarah," he began, his voice soft, "this time apart has made me realize many things. I realized that I also have my share of blame in what happened. Maybe I became complacent, forgot to show how important you are to me. But I also realized that, despite everything, I still love you and want to make our marriage work. If you're willing, I'd like us to try again." His words were like a balm for my wounded soul. Tears streamed down my face as I responded, "Michael, I'm so sorry. So very sorry. This time away from you made me see how important you are to me, how much I love you. If you can forgive me, I promise I'll do everything in my power to rebuild our trust and make our marriage stronger than ever." At that moment, as we hugged in the middle of the cafe, not caring about the curious glances around us, I felt we were taking the first step on a new journey together. It wouldn't be easy, there were wounds to heal, trust to rebuild, but we were willing to try. In the months that followed, Michael and I worked hard on our relationship. We started couples therapy, learning to communicate better and express our needs in a healthy way. We rediscovered the pleasure of spending time together, doing simple things like cooking together or taking long walks in the park. One of the hardest things I had to do was meet with Jason one last time. I felt I needed to close this chapter of my life properly. Michael, in his infinite understanding, understood and supported my decision. The meeting with Jason was bittersweet. I explained to him that, although what we had was intense, it wasn't real. That I loved my husband and was committed to making my marriage work. To my surprise, Jason was understanding. He admitted that he too had gotten carried away by the emotion of the moment, but that he understood my decision. We parted as friends, wishing the best for each other. As time passed, Michael and I grew stronger as a couple. The crisis that almost tore us apart ended up bringing us closer in a way I never imagined possible. We learned to value every moment together, to not take each other for granted. On our next wedding anniversary, Michael surprised me with a proposal, to renew our vows. The ceremony took place on the same beach where I had almost lost him, a powerful symbol of how our love had survived the storm and emerged stronger. As we stood there, with our feet in the sand and the sound of waves in the background, I looked into the eyes of the man who had chosen to forgive my gravest mistake, the man who had fought by my side to save our marriage, and I felt overwhelmed by a wave of love and gratitude. "Michael," I said, my voice choked with emotion, "I promise to love and respect you every day of my life. I promise to be honest, even when it's difficult. I promise to never take our love for granted again. You are my best friend, my partner, my love. Thank you for not giving up on us." Michael smiled, tears shining in his eyes. "Sarah, my love. This past year has shown us that true love isn't just about the happy moments, but about overcoming the difficult moments together. I promise to always be by your side, in good times and bad. I promise to never stop working on our relationship, to make you feel loved and valued every day. You are the woman of my life, and I'm grateful we have this second chance." As we exchanged rings for the second time, I felt as if we were truly beginning a new chapter in our lives. A chapter based on honesty, mutual understanding, and a deeper, more mature love than we had ever experienced before. In the years that followed, Michael and I continued to grow together. We decided to adopt, bringing into our lives two wonderful children who filled our house with joy and laughter. Seeing Michael as a father only made me love him more. His patience, his affection, his dedication, all the qualities that made me fall in love with him initially, shone even more intensely in his role as a father. Of course, life wasn't always a bed of roses. We had our ups and downs, like any couple. There were nights of heated discussions, moments of doubt, days when the weight of responsibilities seemed almost unbearable. But the difference now was that we faced everything together, as a team. The crisis that almost destroyed us had taught us to value our connection, to fight for our love every day. One of the most important lessons I learned along this journey was that true love isn't always marked by overwhelming passion or intense emotions. It's something deeper, more enduring. It's the conscious choice to be by the same person's side every day, to support them in their moments of weakness, to celebrate their victories as if they were your own. Looking back at that restless Sarah who almost threw away everything that truly mattered because of a fleeting attraction, I feel a mixture of compassion and gratitude. Compassion for the lost woman I was, and gratitude for the painful but necessary lesson I learned. Today, as I write this story, Michael and I are about to celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary. Our children are growing up, our careers are flourishing, and our love is stronger than ever. Every morning, when I wake up next to him, I feel a wave of gratitude that we managed to overcome that difficult moment and build something so beautiful together. If there's one message I'd like to leave for anyone listening to this story, it's this: true love isn't perfect. It's complicated, sometimes painful, and requires constant work. But when you find someone willing to fight by your side, to forgive your mistakes and grow with you, hold on tight. Because that kind of love, the kind that survives the storms and emerges stronger, is the most precious of all. I remember a day, about 10 years after our vow renewal, when Michael and I were sitting on our porch, watching the sunset. Our children, now teenagers, were inside the house, immersed in their own worlds of friends, studies, and dreams for the future. "You know, Sarah," Michael said, taking my hand, "sometimes I think about what would have happened if we had given up back then." I felt a tightness in my heart remembering that turbulent period. "I think about that sometimes too," I confessed. "And I'm immensely grateful that we chose to fight for our love." Michael smiled, that smile that still made my heart skip a beat after so many years. "Me too. Look at everything we've built together. Our family, our home, our memories. I wouldn't trade this for anything in the world." At that moment, looking at our home, at the life we had built together, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. I thought about all the difficulties we had faced, not just that initial crisis, but all the challenges that came after. The financial problems when Michael decided to open his own law firm. The sleepless nights when our oldest son was seriously ill. The moments of doubt and insecurity that we all face at some point in life. But then I also thought about all the joys. The day we brought our children home for the first time. The noisy birthday parties full of laughter. The family trips, exploring new places and creating precious memories. The small moments of everyday life, family dinners, movie nights, walks in the park, that, added together, formed the fabric of our life together. "Michael," I said, squeezing his hand, "do you ever regret forgiving me?" He turned to me, his eyes serious. "Not for a second, my love. That moment made us who we are today. It taught us not to take each other for granted, to constantly work on our relationship. It was difficult, yes, but look where we are now." His words touched deep in my heart. He was right, of course. That moment of crisis, as painful as it had been, forced us to reevaluate our relationship, to work on our weaknesses and strengthen our bond. Besides, Michael continued with a mischievous smile, "If I hadn't forgiven you, I would have missed out on years of your amazing cooking. And you know how much I love your lasagna." I laughed, playfully tapping his arm. It was so typical of him, using humor to lighten an emotionally charged moment. It was one of the many things I loved about him. As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, I reflected on how our love story had unfolded. It wasn't a perfect story, it wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, with all the imperfections and complications that reality brings. But it was our story, and I wouldn't change anything about it. I thought about Jason, wondering where he might be now. I sincerely hoped he had found happiness and love in his own life. That brief moment we shared had been intense, yes, but ephemeral. What I had with Michael was lasting, deep, true. In the years that followed, Michael and I continued to grow together. We saw our children graduate from high school, go to college, begin their own journeys into adulthood. We went through moments of intense joy, our daughter's wedding, the birth of our first grandchild, and moments of deep sadness, the loss of Michael's parents in a car accident. In each moment, good or bad, we were side by side, supporting each other. Our connection, forged in the flames of that initial crisis and strengthened over the years, was our anchor in turbulent times and our joy in happy times. As we aged, our relationship continued to evolve. The fire of youthful passion had transformed into something deeper, more comfortable, but no less precious. There was an intimacy in our silences, a mutual understanding that went beyond words. A look, a touch, was all we needed to communicate. On our 40th wedding anniversary, we threw a big party. Our children, grandchildren, friends, and family gathered to celebrate with us. Looking around the room, seeing all those smiling faces, all those bonds of love and family that we had created together, I felt my heart overflow with gratitude. During the party, our oldest daughter made a toast. "To my parents' love," she said, raising her glass, which taught us that true love isn't perfect, but it is persistent. That showed us that relationships require work, but that the effort is worth it. "Mom, Dad, thank you for being our example, our inspiration. May we all find a love as strong and enduring as yours." As everyone applauded, I looked at Michael. His hair was gray now, there were wrinkles around his eyes, but to me, he was as handsome as the day we got married. More so, even, because every line on his face told a story, our story. "I love you," I whispered, the words carrying the weight of decades of shared experiences, of a life built together. "I love you more," he replied, his smile still capable of making my heart skip a beat. At that moment, surrounded by our family and friends, with Michael's hand firmly in mine, I felt a deep peace. Our journey hadn't been easy. We had our moments of doubt, of pain, of almost giving up. But we chose love, day after day, year after year. And that choice brought us here, to a life rich in love, in connection, in meaning. If I could go back in time and talk to that young Sarah, confused and on the verge of making a mistake that could have cost everything, I would tell her, be patient. True love isn't always exciting or easy. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's routine. But it's in the difficulties that it grows stronger, it's in the routine that it deepens. Don't give up in the difficult moments, because those are the moments that shape your love, that make it more resilient. I would tell her that true love isn't found in the excitement of a new romance or the adrenaline of copy-retry. Claude's response was limited as it hit the maximum length allowed at this time. Continue Adita Forbidden Attraction. It is built day by day, in small gestures of affection, in daily choices to prioritize your partner, in moments of shared vulnerability and mutual support. I would tell her that forgiveness is one of the greatest gifts we can give and receive, and that honesty, as painful as it may be in the moment, is always the best path. Above all, I would tell her to look at the man by her side, to truly see Michael, with all his qualities and flaws, and recognize the treasure she has. To never stop working on their relationship, nurturing their love, growing together. Because in the end, after all the storms and moments of calm, after all the joys and sorrows, what remains is this: two people who chose each other, repeatedly, day after day, year after year. Two people who built a life together, who created a family, who faced the world hand in hand. And that, my friends, is the true essence of love. It's not perfect, it's not always easy, but it's real, it's deep, and it's worth every moment of the journey. Now, as I approach the end of this narrative, I feel a mix of emotions. Gratitude for the life I've had the chance to live. Deep love for the man who chose to stay by my side through it all. Hope for the future, for the new adventures that still await us. Our story doesn't end here, of course. As long as there's life, there will be more chapters to write, more challenges to face, more moments of joy to celebrate. But I look to the future with confidence, knowing that whatever happens, Michael and I will face it together. And to you, listener, who has followed our journey this far, I hope my story has touched your heart in some way. That it has given you hope, if you're going through difficult times in your own relationship. That it has shown you the power of forgiveness, honesty, perseverance. That it has inspired you to fight for love in your own life. Because in the end, that's what really matters. Not the possessions we accumulate, not the titles we conquer, but the connections we form, the love we give and receive, the lives we touch along the way. So, go ahead. Love deeply. Forgive generously. Work tirelessly on your relationships. Choose love every day. Because believe me, it's worth it.